long-haired weirdos, short-haired weirdos, vandals, hooligans.
The government, hug the government, love the government, hug the government, love the government, hug the government.
Welcome to The Politics Guys, a place for bipartisan, rational, and civil debate on American politics and policy. I'm Trey, a political scientist at Oklahoma Christian University, and I'm joined by May Mayamun, my conservative counterpart and former Trump White House lawyer. May, welcome to the Supporters Exclusive Midweek Show.
Hey, Trey.
You know, we kept kind of getting close to all of the questions on the main show that supporters had. So it's been a lot of fun getting to do the midweek or the full week show with you, May. And so I am really excited to get a chance, because what we're going to do is just take on listener questions. And I don't know if you know this, but I think most recently I have probably taken the most, flack maybe might be the best word, for trying to read your comments in the most positive light across social media to listeners. So I feel like I finally get to kind of ask you the questions that I have been ascertaining. So I'm kind of excited about this too. And so we've got a number of them, some for you, some for me, some for both of us. But we'll both take them on, of course, as we go along, because I think they're kind of primarily for one person, but we want to get through. And that's what we're going to be doing for our show. So I'm really kind of excited to get to do what the listeners want to do. And one of our frequent posters on Discord is Adams. And Adams, obviously we don't know each other in person, but I do have a lot of fun with you, even though obviously we oftentimes disagree and you like to troll on me. So see, you can't write anything back while we're talking this time. But in this case, May, it's for you. Adams asks, what are May's thoughts on conversion therapy for LGBTQ youth?
Okay, so the first thing is you got to know what you're talking about, because conversion therapy sounds really bad. So I do not think that gay people should be treated as if they have a brain disorder and like convulsed into
straightness.
Normality. Okay, so we'll start
when you say
that.
Normality, I added straightness, but maybe I shouldn't mean. But
no,
do you mean?
I guess I'm using normality as if conversion therapy were the law, right? The theory behind it is you have a disorder and now you have to be non-disordered, right? Mm-hmm. So I do not believe in that. But how is conversion therapy actually defined? Is it that? And the thing is, no, it's not actually that. So a website that I kind of use a lot, it is a leftist website, but they do a great job of updating, is lgbtmap.org. And they have all these maps, and they will show you the maps of conversion therapy, and then they'll show their work behind it. So if you look statewide, there are 23 states plus DC that ban conversion therapy for minors. That's good. Like the thing that I said, I don't want people to be sort of lobotomized or whatever. Okay, that's great. Local bans, even some.
So pause for a second. When you say lobotomized, I'm honestly not sure what you're talking about.
I don't think that people should have parts of their brains or any parts of them cut off, right? So that.
Oh, so you're talking about transitions therapies.
I'm saying that what I think people think of as conversion therapy is taking gay people or kids, whatever, and trying to do something painful in order to make them straight. That's, I think, what's in the common lexicon when you think of conversion therapy. So when you look at this map, you might think, like, why isn't all 50? Why don't all 50 states have something like that? Because nobody believes that should be the case. I don't want to say nobody. Obviously, we live in a country. 30% of people always think something. So, why isn't it all 50? And when you actually look at what conversion therapy is defined as in these laws, California is one of the first. They're a 2012 state to pass this. They say sexual orientation change efforts. So they don't even call it conversion therapy, but sexual orientation change effort means practices by mental health providers. Okay, so now we're not even talking about like all sorts of doctors, but this mental health that seek to change an individual's sexual orientation. Okay, this includes efforts to change behaviors or gender expressions. Okay, so now all of a sudden we're talking about gender expressions. Colorado's a lot more recent, 2019, and I'm just going down the list basically alphabetically. Conversion therapy means efforts to change an individual's sexual orientation, including efforts to change behaviors or gender expressions. So that all of a sudden is different. This is mental health providers can't change your gender expression. So what does that actually mean? That means if you're a parent, you have a boy that for some reason is struggling with their gender identity. And you want this boy to just have a conversation with a therapist. And you want this therapist to say, it is okay. There is nothing wrong with being a boy. And you know what? Like, also, you can't change your sex. You cannot change your sex. Okay. You can't have that in these states because that is not affirming your gender expression. If this person identifies as non-binary or identifies as the opposite sex or identifies as something else, then you are trying to change their gender expression. And I think that that is a First Amendment violation to have that level of control over mental health providers, which the 11th Circuit agrees is a First Amendment violation. But also, I just think it's bad. I think that it is setting kids up for a war with their bodies. You cannot change your sex. And so if you are telling kids to engage in this war with their bodies, you are setting them up for a fight that they will lose. And so if, you know what, some parents might want that. Some parents might want that. And I'm not the parent of those kids. So like, I can appreciate that some parents might want that. I don't know.
So to get into that a little bit more, because I mean, this is something that comes up on the Discord frequently, and I think this is one that Adams was really kind of trying to get. And I can hear you starting to kind of talk about that there. But do you think individuals can be bisexual, intersexual, etc.? Is that a possibility or no? So
sexual orientation and gender identity are very different. So my organization, we work with a lot of lesbian, bisexual groups and people who very much advocate for the rights of lesbians and bisexuals and gays to, I don't know, have same-sex, not just attraction, but same-sex organizations. So I'm not talking at all about sexual orientation. This is about gender identity, and nor is it about intersex. Intersex is a condition that you're born with, and this is something that the ADA recognizes as something that individuals need to be accommodated. So I'm also not talking about intersex. I'm talking about gender identity, which is the idea that sex is not that you can change your sex. I do not think, I don't think.
Well, technically, gender identity is that, you could have a gender identity that is different than one's sexuality, right? That is, so gender is separate from sexuality. Or maybe you disagree. Maybe I'm sorry. I don't mean to, maybe I impose myself there. Sorry. So if you disagree, please do. But
right, that a man can't become a woman. That's gender identity. And then a fact that a man can be attracted to a man or a woman can be attracted to a woman, the whole presupposition that there are gays and that there are lesbians is that sex is real and that the sexes should be equal, but that they are not interchangeable. So that's not even, I don't think, a radical position to take. And the fact that somehow it's being portrayed as that is surprising, because it doesn't mean that people who struggle with their gender identity should be treated worse. It does not mean, but it does mean that we should actually have a conversation about what it means to treat people better or worse. Like, I think there's been this
so do you think there would be something fundamentally wrong? So if you are, however we're going to think, and that's actually more of a complicated matter than one might think, but I don't think that's what we're getting at right here. But how we want to ultimately define sexuality, your biological sexuality in that sense. Are you suggesting then that if your biological sexuality is not the same as your gender identity, that is not part of then, like, in other words, so the T in the LGBTQ is the fundamental problem?
I don't think it's even a problem. It's just that a lot of things, I guess, especially when we're talking about kids. So the vast majority of kids who struggle with gender identity are going to grow out of it. Also, nearly all have other issues, whether that's autism, whether that's a history of sexual abuse, struggling even with poverty, all sorts of things, where if you treat kids permanently for something that is temporary, what have you done? That's a real problem. If you engage even in social transition, which is calling somebody a different name, having somebody dress, present, and socially transition, a lot of kids have said, once I did that, I felt like I couldn't go back. Now my teachers are calling me a different name. I feel like a liar. So when you treat somebody permanently, then especially with chemicals or with surgery for something that is, for the vast majority of people, temporary, you are doing active harm, which sometimes results in permanent sterilization. You're harming this person's entire life, their entire genetic legacy. Like, they can't even reproduce anymore. So that is a real big concern for me. And I think it should be a concern for any nation. So
on that second one then, and this starts to get into my area, but this is part of the question there. So what about, so you have someone comes to you, May, and says, look, my pronouns are she. Is that something you said, well, no, you just can't do that? That's a permanent? Like, so what's your take there? I think that is part of this as well.
Yeah, that's the tough part, right? So pronouns are a little bit funny, because when I'm talking one-on-one with somebody, I obviously want to treat everybody with kindness and respect, and don't want to say, you've asked me to call you something and I won't do it, right? Like, people are averse to doing that because it feels rude and you don't want to be rude. But pronouns you don't really use when you're talking to somebody. You use them when you're talking about somebody. And so it's just one of these things that I've not really had to encounter a lot. But maybe it is the case that all of a sudden it became this idea that it's harassment and it's rude to call somebody what their biological sex is, to call a he, that is somehow bad. And it's strange how we got there, because there's nothing wrong with being a he. There's nothing wrong with being a she. And so this idea that other people have to affirm something that's false, otherwise they're being rude, like, how did we get there? So I'm at this place where I don't want to be mean to people. Like, I want to be respectful. And so I would, I think, use whatever, was like, made people feel, I don't know, welcome, that I wasn't trying to like actively be mean to them. But at the same time, I would have this hesitation, which is like, I'm not trying to be mean if I accidentally use or even purposefully use biological pronouns. I genuinely don't think that we should be in this place where affirming something that is not the case is seen as the kind thing. So I don't know. I'm like, I guess, just torn there.
Okay. Well, I am going to have to pause us there for just a second, May, because that is going to end our ad-supported preview of the midweek show. And so if you want to get the rest of this conversation, if you want to get the rest of our listeners' questions for May and for myself, for my take on this and other issues, I'm going to have to ask you to become a supporter of the Politics Guys. And it's only going to take just a few seconds. If you go to patreon.com/politicsguys, you can get this episode right now and really quickly, along with a lot of really other cool things like the Discord group from which Adams asked this question and many others. So if you just want to either head down to the show notes or head to patreon.com/politicsguys, you can become a supporter of the show and unlock the rest of this supporters exclusive midweek show. Now, if you're not in a position to financially do that, please reach out at mail@politicsguys.com so that we can make some arrangements. Now, if you want to support us in different ways, there's other ways of doing that too, other ways of getting this midweek show. First off, you can always get us on Venmo, where we're at Politics Guys. You can also support the show through PayPal. All of those support links are in the show notes, as well as at politicsguys.com/support. So head there and do that now. I want to give a special thank you to the executive producers of the Politics Guys, who are Bruce Johnson, Wilmer Marino, Daniel Toe, Ryan Beasley, and Don Oglesby. I hope you'll join us again this weekend for our full-length weekend show.
In any
is part of the Democracy Group.